Stop it. Get some help.
What? What the fuck?
You see the smile on my face? This is the exact same smile that I had the entire time while watching James Gunn's new Superman movie at a packed IMAX near me. I have no doubt in my mind that this movie is a very polarizing film that has divided the entire internet, and many people right now who have not even watched this film are spitting hate against it. I'm talking about a friend of mine whose hate-filled rant has led me to make this video. So, Henry Cavill fans, are you ready for this? With the entire internet raging right now over who's a better Superman, Henry Cavill or David Corenswet, I've seen tons of hateful comments pouring in from all across the internet, and I'm sure that this video of mine is also going to be heavily trolled for my opinions. But my opinions in no way is the final verdict on this ongoing argument. This is a 100% spoiler-free discussion, so if you have not seen the new Superman, you can stick around till the end and enjoy this video. And if you are a Henry Cavill loyalist, watch this video till the end, and maybe, just maybe, by that time, I'll be able to convince you to at least give this movie one chance. Man of Steel came 12 years ago when Warner Brothers had just experienced massive success with Chris Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. Nolan's rendition of the Batman was the most grounded and realistic portrayal that the audience had seen for this superhero. With a massive box office number speaking for themselves, Warner Brothers knew, or at least thought that they knew, what the audience wanted in terms of tonality and realism from the superheroes. So here comes Man of Steel in 2013 opening to humongous numbers. It was heavily influenced by Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy in multiple ways, gritty realism and grounded world building. Man of Steel brought Superman down to earth literally and tonally. Metropolis had real world stakes at hand, and looked at from Zack Snyder's dark lens, Henry Cavill's Superman was more introspective, disturbed by the horrors of the reality and internalizing his demons. He was more humanly relatable than the previous Superman iterations. Man of Steel also finds a lot of its tonal and storyline inspirations from graphic novels like Superman Birthright by Mark Waid and Superman Earth 1. Both of these graphic novels had Superman reconciling with the weight of his superhuman ability and the pressures that come along with it. This movie was also a landmark event because it signaled the beginning of the DC studios as we know it today. But interestingly, both the critics and the audience were divided about this movie when it had come out back in 2013. Today, this movie has gained a cult-like status and has its own unique fandom. But DC Studios were trying to win an unwinnable box office battle against Marvel, and in this bid, DC tried to relaunch their franchise multiple times, the most recent one being The Black Adam, starring Dwayne Johnson, but we all know what happened with that film. Now comes year 2022, when in a desperate attempt to save themselves, DC goes back to the drawing board and hires James Gunn as their co-chairman and CEO. Now, anyone privy to James Gunn's previous slate of work knew exactly what DC was going for this time. They were trying to trade in their dark, brooding world for a more optimistic tonality. Now comes year 2025. Along with a massive marketing campaign, DC Studios launches their Superman's first teaser, and my god, the entire fandom went bonkers. Hate spread like wildfire, but amidst all this hate, there was also love that has led to a massive $120 million plus opening weekend at the US box office alone. Now, before discussing David Corenswet and James Gunn's Superman, we also need to understand that over time, DC Studios' dark and brooding superhero universe had started to give diminishing returns year after year, movie after movie. It is indeed a landmark move how the entire fandom forced DC to let Zack Snyder release his director's cut for Justice League. This is the time when he had already exited the DC universe following a personal tragedy in his life. James Gunn's Superman in 2025 is a more vibrant, more colorful, and a very hopeful version of Superman's lore. And as someone who has seen this film, I can 100% attest that David Corenswet has left no stone unturned in bringing his iteration of Superman to screen with flying colors. He's funny, confident, great in action, and that innocence in his eyes makes him exactly the guy you can root for. His iteration of Superman is also something that comes as close as possible to the 1978 cult classic Superman starring Christopher Reeve. This film massively gains from some brief but heartfelt moments between Superman and his parents on the farm that defines the ideology that he lives by. Corenswet's Superman might not be as brooding or as conflicted as Henry Cavill's version, but he too is driven by kindness and is anchored by the affection of his parents. In one of my very favorite scenes from this film, there's a back and forth questioning session happening between Lois Lane and Clark Kent, where she asks some very difficult questions about Superman's action and their moral implications. He gets agitated, restless, and even defensive about those questions. And I think this scene beautifully encapsulates Superman's vulnerabilities, which makes him as human as we are. We also react similarly when faced with difficult questions in our day to day lives. One more reason why this movie is drawing criticism from certain sections of the American audience is because it draws parallels from the Ukraine, Russia, or Iran and Israel war. These wars and the US government's stand on both these wars is what is dividing the American audience about this film. Every decade or so, the kind of movies and the music that we consume changes dramatically. In the post 9/11 era, something similar happened. The Western movies were now becoming more darker, more grounded in reality. They were dealing with the themes of terrorism and distrust. Even people had started to ask questions to people who were in authority. The idea of an all powerful being living amongst us was no longer exciting, it was scary. This was something that was explored even in Captain America Civil War. Man of Steel also raised questions of us versus them, similar to how post 9/11 society became more suspicious and protectionist. Movies are a reflection of our society, but these same movies are also our ticket to escape the everyday mundane lives that we live these days. When half the world is engulfed in geopolitical wars, thousands of people are losing their jobs every day to AI. In such times, presence of such an endearing, light-hearted, and a hopeful Superman is a welcome change. The us versus them narrative is still very much relevant, especially in Trump's era. But the everyday person, despite their everyday struggle, still wants to be happy. And that's what James Gunn's Superman assimilates and executes so beautifully. Both Henry Cavill and Corenswet knew very well how big a cultural icon's shoes they were about to fill in. And both actors have done phenomenally well. Man of Steel back in 2013 did humongous box office numbers, and the new Superman is also off to a great start, signaling audiences pouring love and a great start to DC 2.0. So, as fans of both these films, I would just request you to give each other a chance. Go to the theater with an open mind, watch the movie, and then decide for yourself whether you like the movie or not. In the end, it's not about which Superman is better. The real question here is, through which lens do you choose to look at the world?